The touch of your hand makes me tremble within. The smell of your hair.
Man, feeling well, man.
What's your name?
My name is Cardi Cornish.
And you a legend?
I'm a legend.
You're a legend here in Baltimore City. Where we at right now?
We live in the 17, Pennsylvania Avenue. The legendary Pennsylvania Avenue.
Man, the last time I saw you here, you were doing something just across the street here. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, I had some food left over from an event. We brung it out. We fed a couple of people, man.
Why you do that?
Nice soul food.
Why you do that?
Man, the love that God has shown me in Christ, man, it overflows. That's how it overflows.
That's right.
We got more than we can use.
Already was high within Sandtown, Winchester community, but the age group is getting younger. Children under the age of 18 being murdered in Sandtown has a high peak right now. So our goal is to catch the children.
You're going hard, man. You're going hard on that man today. So what do you think, Mr. Mayor? You got manufacturing right here, helping our young people despite all of the challenges in the city of Baltimore, right here on North Avenue.
No, it's really about the growth. Just knowing where, being there when they were down in Port Covington and seeing how far it's grown. Like you said earlier, like getting the Soul Bay, you know, where we got the Soul Bay at the beginning, but now being able to, when I'm at Cannon Yards, get it, or anytime I'm down at Harbor Place to get it, and folks to not even know, but they gonna know now that like this is coming from young people in West Baltimore, right there in West Baltimore on North Avenue, where they think nothing great comes from, but they can see it in what the young people do.
Here on the plains of Mississippi, now right here, French Ford Mathis. A beautiful town, just leaving Algiers, which is an update 10 years since Katrina. All right, y'all, this is what I came to New York for. Besides the Black Wall Street Awards, we're going in here and get some of this real good jerk chicken. Johnny Glover, out.
I feel the warmth of your skin. Just the touch of your hand makes me tremble within.
But we need to feed our loved ones. DOTS needs to rescind this package policy program so that our loved ones are able to eat every day in that filthy facility that
we have some stars in the building.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, entered to win it for the long haul, baby. Some years ago, I attended the Black Entrepreneurship Weekend. And during this particular weekend by Black professional men, the keynote speaker was Keith Clinkscale. And he said something that I've never forgotten to this day. He said the 3 ways to become rich in America. 1 was media, 2 was banking, and 3 was real estate. Today, we're going to talk with Milan Griffin, who is committed to amplifying the company's mission. Her company is HomeFree-USA. And their mission is to create new home buyers, sustainable homeowners, develop affordable homes, and revitalize communities. Going back to the days of slavery, you think of the Homestead Act and the many opportunities that were supposedly presented to people of color. You think of Tulsa's Black Wall Street, the 500 black towns in East Texas alone. Real estate, you look at Weeksville in Brooklyn or Seneca Village in Manhattan. Real estate has always been at the crux of American wealth. And too often, we as African Americans are on the short end of the stick. Without further ado, we're going to bring to the stage Milan Griffin. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Real estate, HBCUs, the mission to help empower your people, our people, Black people. Tell me about it, Milan. And first of all, before I get kicked let me just thank Robin Murphy for making this happen.
Yeah. Robin's great. Robin's great. So with Home Free USA, Home Free USA is Black owned, family owned, women owned. My parents actually started the company 30 years ago. We're a nonprofit, government approved organization. And as you have already stated, our core focus, we are on a mission to expand of home ownership, sustainable home ownership, affordable home ownership, specifically and primarily, but not limited to Black people, Black community. And why us? Why is it so important? One, our community is losing wealth day to day. And our home ownership rates are lower now than they were when housing segregation was legal. And so if we are not careful, poverty is not what we have to worry about. It's being broke. And that's a whole nother condition that we don't talk enough about, because, when a people are working every day, spending, thinking they have something because they may go on a trip or two, have, nice set of hair or whatever, but they have no net worth. They have very little wealth. That is really going to be hard to navigate and move through America. So Home Free USA is really dedicated to helping the Black community, communities of color, low to moderate income communities, access home ownership and be able to sustain it. And
So, great.
And we have a couple of different pillars, but one of our pillars is our Center for Financial Advancement. That's our HBCU program, where we are helping to teach our college students financial awareness, financial literacy, leadership, and also gear them up for home ownership at a younger age. We provide home ownership counseling, helping to renters to move to home ownership, helping them to overcome their fears and obstacles that may be preventing them from home ownership. And then we have our Develop the Developer Academy, where we're teaching emerging real estate developers, how to get in the game and create community focused real estate development.
So how was it growing up? Growing up in a family, were your parents, would you call them realtors?
No, so we're not, and I'm glad you asked that question. We are not realtors. We're not mortgage lenders. We are what you call a home ownership advisor, also known as housing counseling. And it's not just Home Free USA. Baltimore and around the nation has some really awesome housing counseling organizations. And so what we do is, as housing counselors, we counsel people through their home ownership transactions. We help to simplify it, help to make it easier, and help people to get what's called mortgage ready, helping them people to get their finances together and really get the right information and the support to move forward as someone buys a home, as someone wants to become a developer. So we are what you call housing counselors.
So was it you or your parents who were able to connect with the federal government?
It's my parents. They're really the pioneers. They are the ones that started Home Free USA. They put their own money up, and then they galvanized funding, because we're a nonprofit, from the mortgage lending community. And then from there, we later got HUD approved through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So it was really them that started it, and I joined the team 15 years ago.
So how was it growing up? Your parents advising people on homes. Were your peers, the kids you grew up with, were their parents on a similar entrepreneurial journey? And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Washington, D.C. And as D.C., as people may know about D.C. is a government town. So everybody, Chocolate City, right. So everybody usually either worked for the federal government, D.C. government, or they work with a contractor connected with the government. And so maybe even military. And so my parents were very unique. My parents are one of very few entrepreneurial parents that I know. And they are for real entrepreneurs, because my father, he had the first and only mortgage company in the United States. I'm sorry, the first Black owned and largest at the time mortgage company in the United States. And so he took that knowledge. My mother took her experience in marketing and retail to really come together to build Home Free USA.
Were they graduates of a HBCU?
Yes, both are, and I am too. So my mother went to Fisk University, my father went to Tennessee State, and I went to Spelman. My sister went to Hampton. My brothers didn't go to HBCUs, so we'll forgive them for that later. But it's really us going to it's really us going to HBCUs and really understanding the need, because even with our Center for Financial Advancement program, one, many people don't even, or at that time, we started that program 7 years ago. We started our housing counseling program 30 years ago. But with the Center for Financial Advancement, many people at that time when we started the program, they didn't know what a HBCU was. And even if they knew the name and the concept, they didn't know the talent, the experience, the professionalism that these students have at historically Black colleges and universities. And so our CFA program has really done a good job of being a bridge builder to, as with all of our programs, our bridge builder from our community, the Black community, that has been historically left out, marginalized, and very much so on purpose discriminated against, in terms of our inability to access wealth, stopping us from the wealth building opportunities. And so our company is really working to transform that, in our own way, to really build the foundation to close the racial wealth gap. And one big part of that is building a bridge between our community and the mortgage community. Because the mortgage community, these cats have the money, and these cats at the end of the day have to approve the loans that we apply for. But if they don't know the potential on our side, and we don't understand how to navigate their side with these loan products, with these financial instruments, both of us are losing. So we're really a bridge bringing both communities together.
Now, I heard you mention Spelman. I don't know if you saw in my email last night, I put #house.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. We gotta love a Morehouse man.
I only did 3 semesters there, but I must tell you, it was the greatest. And then did a trimester at Georgia State. It was the greatest 2 years of my life coming from Baltimore. One, just to get out of the rat race. Even those 2 years, I'm pretty certain it helped preserve my life and expose me. I mean, I don't know how much about go-go I knew before the DC Metro Club, but I will tell you, I have some friends in the DC Metro Club who enlightened me. And I am a big Chuck Brown fan. But even more so, as a journalist, I've had the distinct opportunity to interview your mayor for life, Marion Barry. And I have to ask what impact he had on your family's business, if any.
That's a great question. And that question does not come up enough. So one piece about Marion Barry that's very important is that he advocated and he pushed for DC to get certain contracts, and there be minority contracts, while all this money was flowing in the city in the 70s and 80s. And so with that, with the push and advocacy of Marion Barry and his team to really put Black economics at the forefront, what he ultimately did was to create a really strong Black middle class that we still see today. And so you even take my parents, and that also rolled out because it wasn't Marion Barry is a big part of it, not just for my parents, but Blacks all across DC, really making sure that Blacks, again, we're able to benefit economically from what was going on in the city, from all the contracts and money coming through. That in turn helped to get Black folks in the federal government, in DC government, and build a very strong middle class, because many of us were able to benefit from contractual opportunities, minority business opportunities within the federal government. And so, all these things in DC government. So all these things really work together. And also with, and because Marion Barry created this, not only, it wasn't even Chocolate City as much, it was economic opportunity for the chocolate people in the city, which were not which was not common, then people like my parents were able to not only benefit from his space, but we were also able to come together in a community setting. Because what happens is if we don't have the network opportunity, if people in business can't network with people in government, and if people government can't connect with people in business and the community and vice versa, then we're left out. So I'll say our Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, he created a Black ecosystem of economic stability and sustainability that radiates to Prince George's County, other parts of Maryland, but also how people like my parents work together and scale up their business.
Did you know that Marion Barry was with Dr. King on the campus of Atlanta University? There's a famous picture out there.
I did not know that.
So I would imagine that you've come across one of Marion Barry's success stories, Donahue Peebles.
I've heard, but you got to remind me.
So Donahue Peebles started off working for Marion Barry as an appraiser, but then he went on to become a huge developer. And I think he owns a hotel or two in Washington, D.C. But it also brings to mind Atlanta.
Yep, exactly.
Maynard Jackson.
Yeah.
And what he did with J. Herman Russell in terms of development. How do we, we're going to get back to the real estate, but how do we develop more leaders like a Marion Barry, like a Maynard Jackson, who understand? Here in Maryland, we have one of the largest, if not the largest, Black caucus in the country. Got a Black governor, a Black treasurer, a Black attorney general. But if that political power doesn't translate into economic empowerment, it's all for naught.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So,
and so often with our young people, it starts with programs like this, helping to really educate, because this generation is interesting because we get so many headlines, police brutality, which is a definite thing that's been going on for way longer than it should, and all these different headlines. But it's important that we pay attention to those headlines, because those are real issues, but not get distracted. And with that, really teaching our young people not only the areas to show up, but how to show up. The Black community, we are still very much so just a couple of decades out of slavery. And I say decades, not century, because we cannot think that we really had a fair playing ground to do anything under Jim Crow and all these really oppressive systems. So upon the passage of the Civil Rights Act in the 60s, that's really our true starting point of freedom, because legally, and it's not there yet, but the law started to slant on our side a bit more, so we have opportunities to participate. So with this young generation, one, is so important to teach them, which we're trying to do every day through our Center for Financial Advancement, to teach them, one, what the core issues really are beyond the headlines and what they may see on TikTok and Instagram, but two, how to prepare and position these young people for these opportunities. Things like leadership development is still very important. Things like self-esteem development is still very important. Things like financial awareness, and I'm not just saying financial literacy. I'm saying being financially aware of not just budgeting savings, but also being aware of the need to build wealth through real estate, the need to diversify your money through investment in stocks. And so again, the more we pour into our young people in these variety of ways, the more that we can position them to not only be in these positions, but also understand how to move policy forward that is really going to help all of us financially.
Milan, when I first got to Morehouse, I started getting them student loan checks. And they say they lend you $2,500, but the check was only $2,200. I want to know where my other damn $300 at, since I got to pay for it. But the first thing that struck me, now my mom would be 95. I'm 59.
Congratulations.
I guess my older sister, who's gone now, was the one who would teach me some of the practical things I needed to know, because mom's is tired at that point. Mm-hmm. But the first thing I remember when I hit the campus were these damn credit card applications. Can you talk to me first and foremost about credit?
So the United States is a debt driven country. We talk a lot about the U.S. debt, and we're trillions of dollars in debt, but most of that debt is consumer debt. It's not just like some random debt that we have. It's all of our consumer debt coming together to create this heavily indebted situation that the U.S. is in. And so when it goes to credit cards, it's important to know how we are trained as Americans. In Asian countries like China, they're trained to be savers. In America, all of us are trained to be consumers. And many of us, and let's just take it to our community at this point, are trained to be greater consumers than we are investors. And I like to say money multipliers. And so with that in mind, with the credit cards, I'm not going to say credit cards are terrible. They can be a practical way of building wealth. Student loans, they also have a means to an end, but you just have to be mindful of not overspending or taking out too much debt on these student loans where it's hard to get your return on investment. When we look at our black students lead the student loan debt piece, for example. But if you really think about student loans can be predatory, not on purpose, but just by the way that they operate, because they're lending out people money that may not have a proven track record yet to pay it back. And we, the ones who are taking out these student loans, may not know what our financial trajectory is going to be like after college. Because these students many of them aren't coming out making $150,000 a year. Some of them are, though, but not many of them. And so it's important that with credit cards, that with student loans, is that we make sure that we use them consciously, we use them responsibly, and we know that let's not get in over our heads. So just a simple thing with credit cards, when you're looking to buy a home, you do need to have some track record of credit. Your student loan is a track record of credit, specifically and especially if you started paying on it already. Credit cards are a good way to establish credit, but if you use it, pay it off immediately. And if you're like me, who is not good at doing that, just don't use them.
Amen. So I live in Sandtown. Sandtown became notorious back in 2015 because of the death of Freddie Gray. Sandtown is a historically Black community, inner city West Baltimore. We have more vacant houses here than in any part of Baltimore City. I think the total number citywide is around 15,000. There have been programs like Governor Hogan's to remove blocks of vacant houses, and that made a dent. How do we get our people? I mean, they got the city has a dollar house program, but I can sell you this house across the street for $1, but you're going to need probably, they say 70,000, but you probably need 140,000 to make it worth anything. The house next door is worth 182,000, but it's surrounded by vacants on both sides. Tell me about your developer program. How significant is it to create Black, not just homeowners, but Black developers? And that's a hallmark of your program.
Yes. And so this new program that we are launching is called Develop the Developer Academy. And basically with that academy, we are teaching emerging real estate developers, people who may have, and you use the term flipped because it's a common term, but it's not the best term. Flipping houses has a negative connotation. But let's just say a person may have come in and they quote unquote flipped one or two houses, or maybe they're just trying to get into the game of real estate development. So with Develop the Developer Academy, what we're doing is helping emerging developers to get into this field, to teach them the fundamentals of real estate development, to connect them with financing opportunities. They will be in the room with lenders, with people who can provide financing and can really teach you how to qualify for financing to really get in the game and scale up these projects. And so often, we look at our communities, and we are irritated, as I am at least, with everyone else coming in our communities, either developing the community, building up these vacants, or the vacants just sitting too long and not being built up, or if they are built and reconstructed and revitalized, any old body and everybody outside of us are coming and moving in and taking advantage of that opportunity for economic growth when we've been in the community on the long haul. So with Develop the Developer Academy, this is an opportunity for real estate developers, emerging real estate developers, to get in and scale up their real estate development practice so that they can do it in a community centered way, do it alongside the community, not just plopping development on the community. They can scale their projects, they can access financing, they can grow their projects, reduce costs, increase the profit margin so they can do more projects. And most importantly, we are tapping into and helping to bridge the gap between people who are coming from underserved communities. Only 1% of real estate developers are Black, Brown, or women. And so the Develop the Developer Academy also helps to change that stat by getting more people from our community, teaching them how to get in this real estate game and maximize in it.
This is powerful. I don't know if you are aware, but here in West Baltimore, now I'm in Sandtown, the major thoroughfare to the north is North Avenue, and runs from east to west. But from West North Avenue, so north and Mount Royal, all the way to Walbrook Junction, State Senator Antonio Hayes has created the West North Avenue Development Authority. And your homeboy, Chad Williams, is the executive director, straight out of, I think he went to UDC, but he's done real estate around the country. And for the first time in at least 25 years, a boatload of money, almost cuss, a boatload of money, $28 million has come to help revitalize this major thoroughfare in West Baltimore, as well as 100 yards to the north and 100 yards to the south. We need you to come and speak to these micro developers that we currently have. And one group, I'm proud to tell you, includes 9 Black women.
Nice.
Really, really nice. And I'm sure you haven't gone to Spelman. There's nothing like seeing us, seeing our sisters at the helm, taking charge. But yeah, we need to bring you, we need you here in Baltimore. Even if you just came for one day to visit, or maybe to one of the WNADA meetings, that's what they call it, WNADA, West North Avenue Development Authority. But there are some developers and they're doing, small projects, and you got to start somewhere. Is anywhere too small to start? I mean, I guess you start with your first house, right?
So you start with your first house. So Baltimore is interesting. Well, let me just mention, I want to give a shout out to Chad, shout out to Senator Hayes. Both have been great. Senator Hayes is really, we've already been in conversation with him about some of the development in that area. So we're hopeful that we can participate and come out and speak. So that's great. Yes. And they're doing great things. And so you could always start development with just one house. Now, when it comes to Baltimore and their plots of vacant, there's so many vacants on some blocks that you want to be strategic on where you launch your efforts. Because if you're in a position where you redevelop one house on a block of vacant houses, it may be harder to get that house sold, because then somebody who's buying the house may not want to buy one developed house on a row of vacant houses. So it's some strategies that have to be considered. But you also don't necessarily have to go in feeling like or expecting to develop 5 houses at a time either. And so that's why this Develop the Developer Academy is so important. Freddie Mac and HomeFree-USA are coming together. We're working with a group called Grow America to provide the curriculum, going over the fundamentals of real estate development. We are bringing in some local powerhouse folks from Baltimore, local nonprofits, people from the government to talk about the permitting process and how to navigate that. We're bringing in contractors, local contractors, so to really show people and teach our students in the academy how to navigate the unique landscape of Baltimore, given the fact that it's a lot of vacancy and blight, and there are government obstacles to the process that one has to consider in order to make their projects effective.
So I gotta ask you. My daddy said, if you're going to be a journalist, you got to ask the tough questions. Have you done any houses, or are you familiar at all with Baltimore?
Yes.
And I say that rhetorically because I got 3 vacants to the north of me. 3 vacants, 3 private homeowners, and they've been vacant for 15, 20 years. And I'm just going to be transparent. I am a journalist. My home is paid for. I paid it off back in 2002. But I live next to these 3 vacants. They caught on fire in 2017. By the grace of God, it didn't touch my house, but they're just sitting there. There's also a city-owned property 4 houses down. And part of the challenge in this neighborhood is watching out for squatters.
Yeah.
So it's a constant battle. But on top of that, Milan, we have, if you ask me, and I'll say it, we have an anti-business city. This city, I mean, between the red tape, the apathy, and a lot of the Black people, not all, but a lot of the Black people that work for city government who forget that they work for us. It's nothing like Washington, D.C. It's nothing like a Washington, D.C. under a Marion Barry. It's the classism thing, because Sandtown historically has the stigma, oh, it's Sandtown, when I'm actually surrounded by homeowners. So we have a lot of homeowners, but we also have a lot of blight. So any thoughts on navigating a city like Baltimore, which I personally think is anti-business? We chase business away. We don't have any Fortune 500s. It's coming along. David Bramble, you know, he's opening doors and showing us that it can be done. But there's still this, you know, I still say in terms of a cosmopolitan city, to me, in many ways, DC is miles ahead of Baltimore. Baltimore is blue collar, stupid at times, just stuck on stupid. I can say because I live here.
No, I'm sorry. You had me chuckling for a second. Okay. No. So here's the thing. HomeFree-USA, we've been in the Baltimore community. We've redeveloped over 100 properties in Baltimore City, mainly in the West Baltimore area, Poppleton, right around University of Maryland Biopark. So that has really been our area. And if you drive through, especially that Fayette Street area, you'll see a red door. All of our houses have red doors on it. And so so my company, we have been steeped in real estate development in Baltimore since about 2010, because when the housing crisis hit, so many people went into foreclosure. And with so many people going into foreclosure, what ended up happening was the banks were donating or selling at a discounted price a lot of the foreclosed home to nonprofit organizations. So HomeFree-USA was one of the beneficiaries. My father, Jim Griffin, he also is a real estate developer, in addition to him being steeped in the mortgage space. So he has really led the charge of real estate development in Baltimore, and I've learned a lot from him. And I am really getting my feet wet through this academy. But he and HomeFree-USA have been in this space since 2010. We've really redeveloped over 100 homes, mainly focused in the West Baltimore area, right around Poppleton and the University of Maryland Biopark. Now, with some of the things that you're mentioning, the things that you're mentioning are a thing. And that's why it's so important with this academy to really walk people through to understand what they are getting themselves into, like the permitting process. I mean, with HomeFree-USA, we have to pay expediters to expedite our permitting process with Baltimore government. And now the good thing is with Baltimore city government, You have more experience in this space working with Baltimore city government than I do. But just as I've come in to the conversations, the current administration is open to listening. And they are,
Yes.
yeah, and trying to do more to improve what you said, being anti-business. Because we've even seen a lot of the hiccups with
We're talking with Milan Griffin. She's with HomeFree-USA. She just
sorry about
come
that.
on.
Look, I'm
It's
doing
okay.
this from my phone and I'm getting all
I
types of
understand.
calls and everything else. So sorry about that. But needless to say, with it, so Baltimore City is it can be anti-business, like you said. The current administration under Mayor Scott, we have knocked on his door many a times and had many a complaints, and he's been pretty assertive. He's been pretty assertive about. Can you hear me? Okay.
Fine.
Can it hear me? Okay. And he's been pretty assertive about making sure that we're pushing things forward and improving on the process. Can you hear me okay?
You're fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. So yeah, so going back to what you're saying, there's also a thing in Baltimore, and I'm not going to name any names, but historically, contracts have also been doled out to real estate developers who are sitting on land in Baltimore and haven't even done anything with the land. So there's also a bit of a legal fight as well in some areas with developers who are just coming in who have the want, the money, the focus, and the concentration to develop these spaces. And there's a fight between these new developers and existing developers who have gotten into these communities and not done what they need to do. So there's also some land lockage going on with developers as well. So there's some things in Baltimore, but on an optimistic side, resources are coming in, and the new administration is at least trying to push things forward.
I will agree with that. I have to ask you. Well, I guess it's a comment. Baltimore is anti-business. Marion Barry told me once. He and I, I've interviewed him a few times, and he said if the elected officials aren't doing what you need done, he said, quote unquote, vote the bums out. What I find is, and I told you we have one of the largest, if not the largest, black caucus in the country here in Maryland. Too often, our black elected officials don't know business. So how can you be an effective advocate for black businesses when you don't know anything about business yourself?
Well, and let me just add one thing there, and that's a very good point. I was speaking to this other brother who is really steeped in policy and doing a lot of lobbying with the federal government. And one thing he said is that, to that exact point, one, politicians are not going to know everything. Two, the election cycle keeps these people on their toes, just working to be reelected, if anything else. So it's so important that we as a community stay on top of these people, because you look at these big corporate lobbying groups, from the gun industry on, they darn near have a bench in Congress and all these other local governments to really keep their point going and then make their point and keep it alive. And so it's so important that, yes, we want to elect the right folks in, and we want to boot them out if they're not doing what they want to do. But it's us on a community level that really has to fill in that gap to make sure that we are, there, focused, and pushing the needle forward, regardless of who is in office. Now, there's time and money to do that. I will say, and I got to give a shout out to my Baltimore folks, because you all about your business. You all do stay, on top of many of these folks, but it's also important that we stay on top of our political leaders for the right reasons. And so when it comes to, like you said, vacancies in your area, and nothing is being done to and with these vacancies, look, bug, harass, stalk your local officials, because I'm not saying that anyone could do everything, but we as a collective could do more if we push them to do it.
I'll tell you something else. DC is a Democratic town. Baltimore is a 9-1 Democratic town.
Mm-hmm.
The state of Maryland is 2-1 Democratic. But we have to know how to deal with Republicans too, because especially given that they are so pro-business.
Exactly.
What I find with the Democrats, we are so used to a damn program. And a program is nice, but I want business. I've been in business for 22 years. I want somebody who can talk business. So we as a people are often more married to the Democratic Party than we are loyal to our own church.
Yeah. And you know, the irony
and we missed the money.
Yeah. And the irony of it all is that the my father, God, when you asked about Marion Barry, really what I thought about was my father telling me stories about how the I think around that time it was the Reagan administration, or even Nixon, going back even further from there. But really, where he was able to get his start in business, even on a private mortgage side, was because of the a lot of the money that the Republicans were pushing down the pike for business sectors at the time. And I think you raised an important point. And you know, let me just say, we're a nonprofit organization and we're bipartisan. So I'm not leaning to any political group or another. You know, I have to put that out there. But it is important that we think about what you just said, because when it comes to what we're focused on in our community, when it comes to what we're advocating, that is a bipartisan situation. You and what you need in your community to move forward is not just Democrat. It's not just Republican. It's based on you. And so whoever's in office, and that is a very important point. I'm glad you brought it up. We need to be advocating and pushing the needle forward, to really make sure the policy goes in the way that we are directing it to, and not just being so, you know, stuck to Democrat, Republican, this and that kind of thing. Let's move our own policies forward.
I want to get into your Developers Academy. What do I do?
So you got to HomeFree-USA.org/developers, HomeFree-USA.org/developers. And this is, again, a great opportunity. Let me just spell it out to make sure everybody has it. It's HomeFree-USA.org/developers. If you go to HomeFree-USA.org/developers, you will be, and actually, let me just check because I don't think I gave the right website. One sec. And I'll just course correct on that in just a moment. But needless to say, when you go to HomeFree-USA and you look at our program, you will be in a position of really understanding how to apply for the program, and how we can move forward our applications in. And it's HomeFree-USA.org/developer, no S. So HomeFree-USA.org/developer. Developer, no S. HomeFree-USA.org/developer. So if you go to our website, you can apply now. Our applications are closing October 1st, but we encourage people to still apply. We want you to apply and really take advantage of this opportunity. This academy is at a fee, but it's a very nominal fee in comparison to what you'll get. You don't have to pay anything to apply. We'll let you know around October 11th whether you've gotten accepted, because we are screening all the applications, because we want to make sure that this is not just an academy where people participate in and then they leave with some great information feeling good. We want to make sure that people use this information to actually develop projects. And so we stay with you for about a year after the program. The program is November 7th to the 11th. 5-day. We do run it over Veterans Day weekend, so people don't take a lot of time off of work. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We have a light day on Sunday, and then we're coming back including on Monday, Veterans Day. And then we have a capstone project on November the 21st. We have some major players that are joining us for this. People from Freddie Mac, people from major mortgage companies across the country, and so we have some really great things. But if people go to homefreeusa.org/developer, they can apply.
This is so special. Tell me about Robin Murphy. I've never met her in person, but I've seen her work. And so when I got a call from her office and LaDon Black, I was like, whoa, I've made it to the big leagues now.
Robin is great. Robin is great. And let me just tell you one thing. I think that we as a community negatively talk about each other all the time. Black people don't do this. Black people don't do that. You know, black owned business of this, black owned business of that. I will say Robin and LaDon are great, and they are black owned, black run media relations firm. And so they are wonderful to work with, very responsive, very professional. And so it's just important to know that there are some really solid black folks out here doing amazing things. And Robin Murphy and LaDon of JRM Consulting Media Relations, they're doing a great job.
Well, that's good. Let me ask you, do you ever connect with your Spelman sisters?
Yes, I do, actually. Look, first of all, you know, I'm a Homecoming fan. So you cannot, I mean, many do go to Spelman and Morehouse and not go back to Homecoming. But that's just like, why? Homecoming is like a little mini black heaven congregating in Southwest Atlanta annually. So, yes, I do connect with my Spelman sisters. I go to Homecoming. I was a lot more active with the Alum Association a couple of years ago. I got to get back into it. But with my Spelman chapter here in the DC area, I created a conference called the Loving Me Girls Conference. And it is a self-esteem building conference for young women, for teens, young ladies in the DC metropolitan area, but even we have young ladies from Baltimore that drive down. That's annually in the spring. And the great thing is that it's still going on. And that's one of our DC alumni signature programs. And I also give to Spelman. I am a big advocate of we have to give back to our institutions, because our institutions are trying to raise money from corporate donors and private donors, individual donors. But what happens is that they want to match the money that the alum is giving. So if the alumni base is not contributing financially to our institutions, it actually makes it harder for these institutions to raise more money. So it's just important that we also are giving back to our institutions. So I am financially involved with Spelman.
I gotta tell you, I'll never forget standing in the financial aid line. The year was roughly 1983, and it was a long line.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from Baltimore, so I ain't gonna stand in the back of the line too long. I'm gonna navigate my way to the front. I'm just letting you know. But Milan, I saw this man, somebody's father, and he walked from all the way back there, all the way to the front of the line, pulled out his checkbook, wrote a check, turned around, and walked out. And I said, one day, that will be me. Mm-hmm. Did you ever feel that same or similar? Did you have any similar experiences at Spelman? I mean, I saw greatness. I saw what I had read about in books. I saw it in action in Atlanta. I saw empowerment, black empowerment that came out of the civil rights movement.
Oh, you know, let me say, Atlanta has a special place in my heart because, you know, I went from one chocolate city to another chocolate city, went from DC and again, a chocolate city with some, where the chocolate folks got, you know, have some money running through it. It's not just any old chocolate city. So I went from DC to Atlanta, and I'll say one really big, unique difference about Atlanta that I loved is that Atlanta black folks are diverse. I mean, black DC black folks are, Baltimore black folks are. We're just our culture and our community just has the spice and flavor to it. But I'll say that the black community in Atlanta is so interesting. That was the first time, and this even gets into Spelman. That was the first time that I met black vegans. You know, vegan, like straight up black vegans. Like they didn't eat any dairy products and black raw foodists. People that didn't even eat cooked food. They were so steady on their journey. That was the first time that I saw real palatial mansions that black people own in the outskirts of Atlanta. And so Spelman was very important because when I went to Spelman, I majored in environmental science. I later went to political science and just kept with environmental justice as a minor, or as a concentration, I will say. But Spelman, just like Atlanta, was just such an interesting institution because Spelman not one connected me. I was already steeped in my blackness and I was already comfortable and around black people. But at Spelman, the first year, there's a class we have to take. It's called African Diaspora and the World. And that class is required um, for all first year freshmen. And in that class, basically, they strip us of our kind of oppressed white consciousness and they steep us with what it's like to be black and a woman in America. Because so often black women are only focused on the black side and not the woman side. And so Spelman did a great job of bringing both of these together. I mean, and somebody said this quote to me, and I totally accept it. They call Spelman women bougie revolutionaries. And I was like, that is very true. Because Spelman women are about our business. We are about being professional. We're about being on top. But we also, I think Spelman through classes like African Diaspora in the World, they really steep in being in a mega epicenter like Atlanta. They really steep us with black consciousness. They really steep us with understanding how to take our business sense in whatever we're doing, doctors, lawyers, business folks, or whatever, and meshing it with the people, our people, to really make a difference.
What I got from Morehouse is that I can do anything. That's it. I mean, I knew that growing up, my dad owned a funeral home. My parents ran that for most of my childhood. But I knew I could. But when I got to Morehouse and you read about Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays and Hugh Gloucester was the president back then, and Edwin Moses, the track star, Spike Lee was filming School Days at the time. The only limitation is the one we put on ourselves. So that's what I got. And I got to bring that full circle. Living next to 3 vacants. That's not what I do. I know that's a full-time job. But having met you, I am going to fill out this HomeFree-USA.org/developer because I've been encouraged to do something about it. But you know, Morehouse, man, I'm not just going to go into it unprepared. I need strategy. Because I want to win. Losing is not an option. I'd love for this block to get back to 100% occupancy again. I mean, hell, I got to tell you, Milan, it took me a few years. It took us a few years to chase the drugs off of the block.
Yeah.
And now we're being inundated with non-black addicts who are trying to infiltrate. So here's an important question that I got to pose to you, and then maybe it's the last overall topic. Is it true that Baltimore is the last East Coast city to gentrify? We're talking with Milan Griffin of HomeFree-USA. Make sure you guys sign up for this class. I'm going to see you in class, HomeFree-USA.org/developer, because we have to, we really have to take charge of our community.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so going back to what you're saying about the vacants here, Baltimore City, I've heard the same thing about Baltimore being the last East Coast city to really gentrify. And let's kind of keep that in mind. But I want us to put another thing on our mind, which is we as Black people have to get in the game of ownership before everybody else comes, because when they come, and you know who I'm talking about, that's when the price usually starts to go up. So we want to get in to real estate. We want to get into our communities. We want to own our communities. Baltimore has the opportunity to be the Black mega epicenter that we want it to be, that has the economics running through it, that's a solid and safe place for Black families, for the Black middle class of all layers. And so it's so important that we take advantage of opportunities like Develop the Developer Academy to learn how to transform and move our communities around. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to get in real estate development. And especially through academy like this, where we're breaking down the fundamentals, if you do take and we're not the only ones in town. There are other real estate developer academies in Baltimore that I would suggest people look into as well, because it's so important that we work together. But needless to say, take advantage of the resources that HomeFree-USA is providing through Develop the Developer. Learn how to get in the game and transform those vacancies on your block instead of waiting necessarily for somebody else to do it. Also, let's keep in mind that Baltimore has a lot of down payment and closing cost assistance available. To buy a home in Baltimore is a smart move because you could qualify for upward and down payment and closing cost assistance. So it's so important that we look at the opportunities to buy in Baltimore. We see it as an opportunity versus a stain. I know everybody's trying to run out to the county, but look.
Yes, that part, Milan.
The Baltimore city is going to be what DC is now, out of price for most of us. So let's get in it now. I know it may seem scary. I know we may have to.
You know what makes it scary, Milan? The media.
That's exactly right. I agree with that.
The media, Fox 45, they paint such a dismal picture of Baltimore City that a typically upwardly mobile Black woman with a degree from Spelman, like, oh, hell no, I'm not going down there. But Becky moved down the street.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's what happened with DC. And so here's the thing. When opportunities are around, when they're presented, we can't get mad if we don't take the opportunity. So it's important that we see the opportunity. HomeFree-USA is here. We're here because we have our Develop the Developer Academy. On the other side of our business, we provide housing counseling. If you go to homefreeusa.org/developer and you really look through that academy, consider applying to learn more. We will alert you whether you got accepted. But also while you're there, feel free to just go to our larger website and look at what we do. Our goal is to be a bridge and to provide education and information so people can buy homes, sustain their homes, and if on a separate end, redevelop homes for other people to buy. But it's all about us getting the keys to get in these communities, us buying into Baltimore, us owning and moving Baltimore forward, and not waiting for somebody else to come in, the prices to come up, folks walking their dog around the neighborhood when you wouldn't normally do it at all hours of the night, then get mad. No, take advantage of the opportunity, take advantage of the resources, get into Baltimore City while you still can, because it will not be like this in a couple of years.
Go to Harlem, go to Brooklyn. It's totally different. You got a Whole Foods in Harlem right there on Malcolm X Boulevard. You never would have imagined that. You see white people jogging up the street on 125th Street. You never would have seen that. You see white people at 14th and U.
Exactly.
Never.
And the irony, and I know we have to wrap up, but the irony of it all is when you look at real estate, when you look at redlining, when you look at the system of economic and thus racial segregation and discrimination in this country, again, it's funny because Black communities are not appraising, their home values are not appraising to the same amount as white communities. The irony is, for Black communities to go up in value, and don't get mad at me, get mad at the appraisal industry for this. But for Black communities to really, Black homes to go really up in value, white people have to start integrating into these communities. That's the irony of it all. And so one of the reasons why I'm saying let's get in the game now is because when you look to your left and you look to your right and we are still here, you can get in at a more affordable price. Real estate is a long-term investment. You may buy your first home, you may stay in it for 7 to 10 years. Look, I still am in my first home and I bought it 13 years ago. But it's been a great investment for me. But as your home goes up in value, your home over time will go up in value. Over time, you'll see more people outside of just Black people, or in addition to Black people, I should say, moving into the community. Your home will go up in value, but you got to get into it earlier, or you have to get into it now before it gets to where DC is with the housing prices being out of reach. Again, I can't stress it, and I'll wrap up on this. Down payment money is available if you want to be a first-time home buyer in Baltimore. Even with the dollar program, there are ways to get in that, but you do need housing counseling. If you're interested in being a developer, HomeFree-USA has your back on all fronts. You can go to homefreeusa.org/developer for the Development Academy. And then we have our other housing counseling services that you can look at on the rest of our website.
Thank you, my Spelman sister.
Thank you so much.
You handled your business.
I appreciate it.
Again, special thank you to Robin Murphy, and we will see you shortly. Up today, down tomorrow, do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good morning, world.